Greetings, fellow men. Servus Männer. This is Red Pill Germany again, and today I want to tell you how a little incident that happened on Monday this week might just have sabotaged the coalition talks that haven't even started yet. Now, as you all know, Germany still doesn't have a stable government. The Jamaica coalition talks have stopped, so now Angela Merkel is turning towards her old coalition partner, the Social Democratic Party, SPD, in order to form a new coalition. Now, this is a very, very difficult endeavor because both parties, just like in the Jamaica talks, all these parties, they have basically inconsolable positions. There is no compromise that allows everyone to save face in front of the general public and most importantly in front of their core voters. So of course they want to avoid new elections and of course they want to form this big coalition, but they somehow have to manage it in order to save face and to get out of this as quote-unquote winners, ideologically unharmed. So first of all, I will tell you what this incident was, and then I will try to explain to you what different people make of it and what I think about it. So what has happened? And this Monday there was a decision being made in Brussels where they decided whether or not a herbicide that is used in agriculture would be banned or could be used for another couple of years. Now, the two main players involved in this little drama are our Secretary of Agriculture, Christian Schmidt, from the Bavarian Conservative Party, CSU, and the Secretary for Environmental Question, Barbara Hendricks. Yes, she is actually called Barbara, it's actually a she. That's just how German women look like after their expiration date. So according to what we know now, it was clear and known to Christian Schmidt that the environmental department is against a prolonging of the use of this herbicide glyphosate. Because as we know, leftist parties want to ban everything from butter to sugar to tobacco to alcohol, nuclear power, coal power, cars, electricity, basically everything, if they can just get away with it. No, but all joking aside, it was very well known that the SPD does not want this to be prolonged, and we now know also that it was not the will of Chancellor Angela Merkel that this herbicide, the use of this herbicide, would be prolonged. But renegade that he is, thug life forever, right? Christian Schmidt voted for the prolonged use of this herbicide on Monday, and then of course a shitstorm broke loose. The Social Democrats said that they were betrayed by this man, and some people also said that Angela Merkel clearly doesn't have any authority anymore and she cannot keep her ministers, her secretaries in line. It was almost like the little sister is going to the mother telling her what her big brother had done and that she should punish him. So how dare he not vote like I want, right? But this was a decision that the Secretary for Agriculture could do on his own authority, and this is what he did. And what is also interesting is that right the next day, on Tuesday, early in the morning, he appeared live at this morning show of the state broadcasting in Germany on the Morgen Magazin, and he actually explained his decision with rational explanations, I would say. You can have a different opinion, but he said, well, for these and those reasons, and I don't go into the details now, he voted like he voted. And we all know what female politicians would have done in the same situation, and what I described in videos some while ago, what they actually did in situations like that. They would just not be available. They would let their public know via a spokesperson that they don't feel well and they are not available for a statement at the present moment. Then they would fake an illness and receive still all their payments for months and months to come before they silently fade out of business and then, of course, come back. But this man, he went to the public broadcasting just the next morning and explained himself. This is what a male politician does. Of course, now he gets harassed. He had to shut down his Facebook page, I think. His family was already threatened, I heard. So, yeah, there is a real shitstorm now, and people want him to be removed from the German government. Which is something, if I recall correctly, that Angela Merkel as an interim chancellor cannot do. She is just acting chancellor. She is not chancellor yet. So what the Social Democrats, of course, responded saying is that this was foul play and now it's gonna become very expensive for the CSU and the CDU and Angela Merkel if they still want to have their coalition. So I think this story is actually very curious. I mean, what motivation does a nerdy, bureaucratic, good party soldier boy politician like Christian Schmidt have to pull such a stunt? So now let's venture into the realm of speculation, and I will outline certain scenarios of what could have actually been going on here. So the first point that I want to make is focusing on the fact that he is actually not in Merkel's party, he is in Seehofer's party. He is from the Bavarian sister party of the CDU, from the CSU, and as I mentioned in my previous videos, next year Seehofer is facing an election, and the polls say that it is not looking good. You have to understand that in Bavaria, the CSU is the state party. In the past, they were used to having more than 50% of the votes, and they could rule alone without a coalition partner for a very long time. They are Bavaria, basically. But now he doesn't even seem to get more than 40% of the votes, which would be a disastrous outcome for the Bavarian CSU. And if they have to give up too many of their positions now on a federal level for a compromise with the leftist socialists of the SPD, their conservative voter base in Bavaria would probably punish them in next year's elections. So maybe he was actually promised a safe position in Bavaria if he pulls that stunt, if he undermines the coalition talks on the federal level and saves Seehofer and the CSU, or maybe someone else in the CSU. It doesn't need to be Seehofer, it could also be Söder, but if he saves the election for the CSU, for the Cox in Bavaria. Because the AfD already, according to the polls, has 14% in Bavaria. And that would be a disastrous outcome for the CSU. Now, the second scenario is the one that I think is also very likely, and that is that he was supposed to take the fall for establishing a big coalition. Yes, and we will see about that, how it unfolds now in the next weeks, or maybe on the weekend already. Because as I said in the beginning of the video, all these parties have to save face somehow, and Merkel and her Cox, they would love to give in to the program points, to the demands of the leftist socialists, that is, open borders and free migration of low-skilled migrants into not only Germany, but into the whole European continent. This is what the Social Democrats want, and Merkel would love to accept these terms. But she must also have the elections in Bavaria in mind also. She must have the future in mind a little bit, and her voting base is still more conservative than the SPD. And she has to save face, and Germany, the public opinion in Germany is drifting more to the right, as I also predicted by the end of last year already, and this turned out to be the case. So many people think that Christian Schmidt was supposed to do that, that everyone agreed, all the big parties agreed that he would do that, so that the SPD can say now, oh, because he betrayed us, to make up for this betrayal, you have to give us what we want on migration. And then the CSU and the CDU and Angela Merkel and Horst Seehofer, they can all act as if they don't want that, but they have to give in now because of Christian Schmidt's screw up in Brussels on Monday. which is ridiculous on one hand because, I mean, how does the continued use of a herbicide in agriculture outweigh somehow the opening of the borders and the flooding of the European continent with culturally incompatible xenoi? It doesn't outweigh that at all. It doesn't even begin to compare. But these are some of the mind games. These are some of the scenarios that people think out now, trying to explain what could have happened, because the whole story just sounds so unbelievable and so curious that people start thinking that way already. And you don't need a tinfoil hat to think that this is actually plausible. So it could also be possible, of course, that he is just a renegade and he was the quiet guy so far. Yeah, many people didn't even know who he is, so a lot of news outlets actually linked articles with the headline, "Who is Christian Schmidt?" because many of their readers, they anticipated, don't even know this guy. So maybe he holds a personal grudge against Angela Merkel and he wants to pay her back for something. I have no idea. There are plenty of other explanations that are purely speculative, of course, but I think as he is a CSU member, it has something to do with the Bavarian election next year, and either he wanted to sabotage these coalition talks or the SPD was in the boat, I think, and they all brought this very cheap theater play to the political stage in order for everyone to save face so that they can agree on the leftist socialist program points on migration, which is of course what Angela Merkel wants, but she has to somehow sell it to the public, and this might have just been one of the cheap little stunts that she plans to perform in order to get this through. So it is one thing to open the borders and take in a couple of migrants, but it is another thing entirely to leave the borders open for many, many years and actually allow them to bring their families into Germany also. So as you see, it is going back and forth and we don't know what the outcome will be. As I told you before, the youth organization, the Young Socialists, the youth organization of the Social Democratic Party is against a big coalition. They want to go into an oppositional role because the SPD is always suffering in a coalition with Angela Merkel. They lose substance, they lose voters time and time again, and they want to rejuvenate themselves in the oppositional role, because there they could promise the people never-ending goodies, because when they're not in government, they don't have to follow through on their promises, of course. The oppositional role for a left-wing party is the perfect spot to just promise and promise stuff to the people, and oh, if you elected us into government, you would get more welfare, more help, more gifts and more free stuff and world peace, with a cherry and cream on top of it. And at the same time, another very powerful organization actually, it is called the Economic Council of the CDU, the Wirtschaftsrat. It is a more industry-friendly group within Angela Merkel's CDU. You could call them the economically liberal or right-winged wing of the CDU, less socialist, more industry friendly, and they actually said that they are against a big coalition. They would actually favor the minority coalition for Germany. And the funny thing is, I read the article, I read the original statement, they don't say what kind of minority coalition they mean. Do they mean CDU, CSU and FDP, Liberal Party, or do they mean the AfD? They don't really say. Maybe they also mean the Green Party. Who knows? Or maybe the Communist Die Linke. They actually don't say it, but they say that they are against a big coalition. So the last word has not been spoken yet. So when I published my last video, my last podcast, I was pretty positive that the big coalition would be what we're facing now. But now the pendulum swings back and forth and does crazy stuff. We don't know yet. So if you are German or if you have some knowledge, some insights about European, Central European, German politics, you can comment and you can let us know what you think of this story and what you think a realistic outlook would be according to your opinion, where it is going in Germany, what kind of coalition is realistic, and how this will play out. So, but now it is Friday night in Germany, and I'm looking forward to a relaxing weekend, maybe having some Glühwein on the Christmas market, and I hope you also enjoy your weekend. Servus, Kameraden.